Welcome back to the McCann Dogs podcast. I have no idea what episode this is, but Shannon, do you remember?
It's 7. Yeah,
Episode 7, right, of season 2. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of the most important skills that your dog needs to have. It's one of the main reasons that I ended up coming to McCann Dogs for training. And I actually saw this skill save my dog's life. And we get phone calls about having a reliable recall and how it's saved a student's dog's life.
Amazing. All the time.
100%. Yeah. But how you get there, how you get to the point where your dog has a reliable recall is just so important. And I think it's something where a lot of people make little mistakes along the way. And each of those mistakes has a cumulative impact. So they get to a point where their dog doesn't respond when they call come. But I'd like to dive right into this, Shannon. Shannon's actually written an article. I'll link it in the show notes below. But the article is titled, "The Restrained Recall, Start Your Dog's Engine." And right now we have a puppy at home, little Euchre. If you've watched our YouTube channel or maybe even listened to the podcast, I've talked about her a little bit. But, this is an exercise that we'll do with her, not only for skill and for training, but to burn off some energy. And the restrained recall is the foundation of your dog's come command. Do you have a specific situation, Shannon, that you can remember where you used a recall, in your personal life, like out walking around with your dogs?
Yeah, I could probably come up with a ton of stories. Actually, one of the scariest moments with any of my dogs was when we were on the property here, and I didn't realize there was a hole in the fence, and Ned slipped out through the hole in the fence, and he was a young dog at the time. He was dragging a long line, but it wasn't within my reach at that point, and I didn't know there was a hole, and all of a sudden I looked, and my dog was on the other side of the fence, which is coincidentally right beside a really busy road. So immediately called come. And then I actually used a random down command as well, just to stop his motion completely, because I had to figure out where the hole in the fence was to get him back through. That was a really memorable moment. I'm so glad I had obedience skills and a good recall on that one.
For sure. Yeah. I have a similar experience when I was going for a walk around the property here. And Deegan, my black lab, we were probably in I don't remember, I'm going to say grade 2 or 3, something like that. But, I was just out walking around. She might have been dragging a leash. I don't know if I realized the importance, and I don't remember. But what I do remember is that a bunny came out from underneath one of the pine trees and made a beeline for the road. And there's an opening. It's mostly fenced property, but the driveways do have gate openings, and the gate was open. And I panicked and I yelled, "Deegan, come!" And she turned on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody, my friends will remember my life with Deegan before I came to McCann Dogs. But that moment, I have never been more, I don't want to say surprised, but impressed at how impactful training had been for us. Because it's a busy road. Brock Road is a pretty busy road, and there's trucks up and down. And to see her turn on a dime like that after chasing a rabbit, I don't know that she was gaining on it, but she was close enough that I was shocked that she'd leave it on that one command. But it's because we spent so much time.
Absolutely.
And specifically so much time on the foundation of this exercise to teach her what that word meant, and to really get her excited about that word, because all of our commands are just words.
Absolutely.
Until we teach our dog what they mean.
Yeah, and the recall itself, the emergency recall, when you have those moments where your recall literally just saved your dog's life, those are magic, of course. Those are absolutely amazing moments that if there was an alternative to that reality, it would be awful. But there's more magic to the recall than just the life-saving recall. The magic of being able to give your dog day-to-day freedom is huge. To be able to enjoy life with your dog and know that you can safely let them off leash and not have to stress that you're not going to be able to get them back, or that if they do spot that bunny, they're going to go running off. Just having the ability to say come and have them turn around and run back to you, even just to get them back with you if there's nothing immediate dangerous in the vicinity, is still a magical way to go out with your dogs and enjoy life. So many reasons to teach a recall.
Getting down to the beginning of teaching your recall, we talk about using the restrained recall, and we talk about it a lot. And again, as I mentioned in the opening, this is something we do with our puppies. It's a great way to burn off some energy. But when should the average dog owner start practicing their restrained recall with their dog?
Right away. Right away. As soon as you bring your puppy home, you can find a quiet space in your house and you can not only exercise your puppy a little bit, but you can start to create the association that running to you is a wonderful thing. Use a hallway in your house. That 8-week-old puppy that's just raring to go, have one person hold them and restrain so that they're looking at you and you can tease them and get them excited. And then just call them to you. And once they're en route, you can praise, let them know they're wonderful, and then reward when they get to you. This is a really win-win situation for puppies. Naturally, they're going to want to play. So if you can channel that play into things that are also teachable moments, that's an absolutely wonderful thing to do. And if you have 2 people going back and forth in the hallway, 3 or 4 repetitions of that's a lot of learning for a little puppy to get. And they're learning to really enjoy running to you. They're learning to respond to a word. I mean, there's so much value in that.
Yeah. When we start these exercises, Shannon mentioned doing it in a hallway, and people would think, well, how on earth is my dog going to learn in a hallway that they need to come when called when we're outside? But it is the foundation. This is, we choose a hallway, we'll close all the doors, we'll remove all of the other distractions, because we really want to make sure that our dog is successful, and that the only thing, the most interesting thing in that room or at the end of that hallway is us, because we're conditioning the dog to just love the act of running to us and making it valuable once they get there.
You bet. And puppies are cooperative usually with this stuff. So we use that by nature, because puppies aren't necessarily, they're not ready to take on the world yet and take care of themselves. They watch us very closely, or whoever it is that sort of provides safety and food, and whoever it is that shows up and is the leader in that situation is usually followed around quite closely by the puppy. And a lot of the times when we have puppies, we let this lull us into a false sense of security. We think, oh, I got really lucky with a dog that really likes to follow me around. Maybe I don't need to worry about training obedience, but it will change. It changes usually around 4 months when they start to notice there's a big world out there. So if you can use the time between that 8-week mark and the 4-month mark to start teaching them and ride on that cooperative nature and start teaching them to respond to you and give you good attention, and that when they do, lots of rewards come their way, that is going to be such beneficial training. And we always say early training is easy training. So the more you can do during those cooperative periods, rather than thinking, oh, I've got it made, I got really lucky with this puppy, get down to work, teach them the skills. And then when you hit that age mark where they start to realize there's a big world out there, you'll have some work already put into them to rely on.
Yeah. The other thing, and we have a video on this, Kayla and I will sit down, or would sit down with a puppy at the end of the night, just before her witching hour, when she'd start to get a little wily. Mm-hmm. But we'd sit down in that hallway and we'd work on back and forth recalls. We'd start really close to one another, maybe half the hallway. Then we'd increase the distance. Something that you might find is that maybe your dog, they run in even faster if you're using exciting language and you're really. Yeah. This is about motivation. We're teaching motivation at this point. We're not teaching a skill. And we really want the dog to know that this is a lot of fun. But we can also change this exercise up a little bit. It doesn't just need to be in a hallway. And we published a video maybe a couple of months ago now with instructor Carol that talked about a game that you can play.
Love that.
That really reinforces some of these skills and reinforces the finding you aspect of the restrained recall.
Mm-hmm. So start in a really easy location where obviously your dog can see you and things are great. But then as they progress, this is a fabulous game to play with your dog. So if you start with somebody restraining them just around the corner as an example, and then you go into another room and you make yourself fairly obvious, but a little bit tucked off to the side, and then get your puppy's attention, when they learn to start seeking you out, eventually you can make things harder and harder. You can go to harder hiding spots. And basically what this does is it creates a game where your dog says, okay, I hear you calling me and now I need to look really hard for you. And they'll have had experience with that by the time you actually need them to find you out in the real world. The reality of life is that sometimes we'll call our dogs to come and we won't have a direct eye line on them. So we need to make sure that they don't just turn, not see us and go, well, I don't know what to do now. So all these games are like money in the bank. They add understanding. They add the ability to problem solve to your dog's repertoire of understanding.
When we filmed this episode, I was running one of the cameras. And I remember the moment that Carol had moved. I think we set Euchre up maybe in the living room in our studio, and Carol was hiding behind a chair or something like that. I was sitting in the kitchen, and I was sitting on the floor trying to capture, hoping that maybe I captured that moment that you're talking about, where the dog can't quite find you, and they're sort of thinking, well, where are they? And you guys have to check this video out. Shannon's included the video to this exercise in the blog post, so make sure you take a look at this. But you'll see my favorite moment from that video is when Euchre comes around the corner, and she could hear Carol, but she's not quite sure where she is. So Euchre kind of stops and just waits a moment, and then turns her head and sees her. Yeah. And Carol explodes with excitement, and Euchre gets so excited. It's just, it's the most amazing thing. But it's no wonder that the dogs find it motivating to try to find you when you're doing exercises like this. You know, how many times have we talked about some way to make training skills fun? It's just as important that it's fun for you as it is that it's fun for your dog.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. All dogs are born knowing that they will seek out play and fun. This is something that we know right off the hop, you know, and as long as their lives continue as a normal progression that you would expect with puppies, they will keep seeking out ways to fulfill that desire for fun. So if you can be that thing for them, you're golden.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I urge you guys to check out that video, because it's a really cool moment, and it's exactly what we wanted to see, so that you can appreciate why it's important to play stuff like this. But when it comes down to working on your recall command, at some point you got to leave the house. You know, you've got to make things more difficult.
We're not allowed.
No. Well, I love the idea, and I think you really sort of set the stage quite well. Or you know, it was a great example when you mentioned, you know, that white room where there's no other distractions, where there's nothing for your dog to leave you for. But getting into the real world, this is where the wheels fall off for a lot of people. And you've got some tips in your article that can help you to take that exercise outside and maybe work on this exercise with your family.
Yeah, you bet. There's lots of different methods that we can do for that. So we actually did last week's podcast on the distraction ladder and building distractions. So make sure that you're not stagnating in one place too long. Once my puppy is a rock star in the hallway, then I'm going to play those hide and seek games through the house, or I'm going to, you know, change up the locations so that they learn to generalize across all sorts of different environments. I'm not going to go outside and into the busy park with all the dogs running around right away, but I do want to get a little bit more intense with distractions. So I might go from the inside of the house out to the backyard. And now with my other person, I can do I have a little bit more space. I have a little bit more understanding from my puppy already. You know, they know the name of the game here is to chase and get to me. So now what I can do is I can start to build distance, and I can start to build on the chase drive that I'm getting out of my puppy. So the other person would restrain my puppy. I would run away, tease them, get them excited. I might have a toy, or I might have food to show them to really entice them to get to me quickly. Then what I'm going to do is yell my one clear come command. We always want to make sure we're not repeating commands. A lot of the times people think if they say the command over and over and over again, it'll help the dog learn, which is actually the opposite. If you say the command too many times, your dog is going to learn to tune it out. And we want our dogs to learn a specific sound that means that word come. And you are much better off trying to have one clear come command as a consistent cue from time to time, rather than having come, which might end up sounding completely different from one time to the next. Your dog needs to interpret the cue. They're not used to communicating verbally, so we need to give them as much benefit as we can, and as consistently as you can present that word, your dog is going to be able to follow it much better. So one nice clear come command, but then the sky is the limit. Isolate the come command just by like a half a second on the front and the back, but then throw in anything. Oh, you're the best dog ever. Get a cookie. Wee. As you run away, you know, make it really exciting so that there's no chance that they're even going to think about going anywhere else but to you. Everything else is boring compared to you. When they get to you, that's when the real rewards come. So that's when you're going to feed, you're going to play, you're going to interact. Make sure that you spend some time letting that puppy know you've got all the good stuff, including the play, because they'll be seeking that out. And then you can set up again, or you can turn around, restrain the puppy, and have your partner that you're working with do a restrained recall. A
couple of important things, I think, mistakes that people make and things that we help students with a lot. Isolating that come command and not using your dog's name first. Why do we do that?
Their name means a million different things. Actually, their name shouldn't mean a million different things, but we use it a lot. So we don't want that to add confusion to the mix. Like I said, we want to make sure that we're isolating that come command. So that is what our dog is not only learning to respond to, but we're also going to be able to rely on down the road. And we overuse their names so much. We actually talk a lot about nicknames for our dogs. Ned has Nerdler and Noodlewski and his Noodle constantly. He gets constantly called Noodle. And that's because those things are close enough that I feel like I'm saying enough of his name for me, but he's not getting confused about what he should do when he hears Ned. When he hears Ned, he should turn and focus on me. So I want to be very specific with my commands. When I add his name to the recall cue, there's a chance that when he's learning, he might be turning on his name and not hearing the recall cue. We do eventually add in their name with the recall. So,
as an attention getter.
Absolutely. And as a trained dog. So once we're at the point where we're starting to proof out things, we will add their name as a courtesy, as an attention getter, but we don't use it during the training phase. We like to make sure we've isolated that come command.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is really important, and especially for those of you who are training at home, it can be challenging when your dog likes one thing, and you think, okay, well, I know the trainer. They mentioned to use my dog's favorite treat, but even your dog's favorite treat, interest in that can wane, and having a different ending can make a huge difference. This is something we will change up frequently when we're working with a young dog to increase that motivation and for that surprise ending that the dogs seem to really love.
Absolutely. And, depending on your dog and what kind of things they find motivating, I mean, you can use anything. With Ned, I'm sure everybody's heard my stories about him loving water so much, and that would be a great reward for him on the end of the recall. So if, for example, I called him, he turned and came running towards me, for me to say, yes, go swim, and turn around and point him to the river or stream or whatever it is that is available, is massive for him. That is a huge endorphin rush. It's a huge love of his. And I know it builds reinforcement and value. So any rewards that your dog finds valuable, be it toys, be it play, there's times with Ned where I'll fall on the ground and let him jump all over me because that's a fun game for him. And if I'm really pleased, I want that engagement, I want him to know that this was impactful. I remember last time I came, it was the biggest blast in the world. So I want to make sure that I have that impression each and every time.
And in our recall, especially when we're teaching something like our life skill students or our grade 1 students, that ending is going to be very controlled. They're going to sit in front. Your dog is going to stare up at you adoringly, regardless of the environment. It's going to allow you to clip on a leash because in a real life scenario, you might need to do that. But when we're talking about the restrained recall, maybe that ending is throwing a toy between your legs and the dog runs through. Maybe that ending is hitting a tug and having a big game of tug, before you release them. Maybe it is a food reward that they really, really love. But remember, this restrained recall is all about motivation. It has a lot less to do with that control at the end because we want to end on a high with our dogs.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so much time to add in that formal ending. It's actually a really easy thing. Once you have the understanding and the control and your dog has the desire to get right to you, it's actually a really easy thing to just ask them to sit at that point. The reason that we want to build the motivation is because a lot of the times the ending is what's lacking. And it's not because the dog doesn't want to come in and sit. It's because the dog hasn't learned that the end product is to get to you because that's the best place to be. And if you add in a boring sit too early, it becomes less interesting of a place to be. So we need to make that motivation happen first. We need our dogs to want nothing else in the world other than getting to us. And then once we have that, it's a piece of cake to be able to say, okay, buddy, now you can sit and I'll clip on your leash because we have them. They're already there. They're not looking for anything else to interact with.
Yeah. And as you're talking through that, I was thinking about those dogs, and Deegan was one of these dogs that when I tried to take this skill outside into a more distracting environment, I would find that I would have her attention for the first 3 feet. And then the moment I got beyond 5, all of a sudden I was just a little bit less interesting. Do you have some tips that you can give our listeners for, maintaining your dog's attention and what to do if your dog's like, well, a car just went by, I need to check that thing out?
Yeah, for sure. A couple of things. So if you're finding that that's happening just because that one car in 10 minutes came by and you weren't really expecting it, that's okay. Keep practicing in that environment. It was just a sudden distraction that wasn't expected, and eventually another one will come through as well. But if you're in an environment where your dog is distracted by the car and there's, 20 cars every minute, that dog is going to be overfaced by that environment. So the first thing that you need to do there is change that environment. The dog is not ready for this game in that environment yet. You need to go back into your backyard where they don't have a visual on the cars, or into your house even if you need to take that big of a leap back, and keep building the value. Build the value for the exercise itself. So we're going to build value for our dog coming to us and make sure that they know that is the best game in the world. And then we're going to go back out and start to find the environment with the 1 car every 20 minutes versus the 10 cars every minute.
Yeah. Did you go continue on? I was going to jump in there because I was also thinking about what am I going to do if my dog gets distracted along the way. We talk about you being the most interesting thing, and maybe your dog is just a wild child. And the moment you don't have treats on their nose, they're looking elsewhere. Well, if I've walked out 5 or 6 or 10 feet or whatever it is, the worst thing I can do at that point is tell the dog to come and see where it goes. Just hope that the dog comes to me.
Yeah, definitely not the way we want to do it. So this is your dog just itching to get to you. This is not them going, okay, I'm being restrained, la, 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 I'll wait until it's done. This is them chafing at the bit. It's one of the only times that we say, you're okay to pull. you know? And we'll actually have a lot of the times we'll have our restrainers hold by the chest so that we're not encouraging that pulling game. But it is one of the only times that I will allow my dog to pull if I'm using a leash to restrain them for recalls. You can pull all you want, buddy, because I want you itching and chafing at the bit to get to me. If I went out 6 feet and my dog started looking at something else, I know that I have gone out too far, or I need to change the environment, maybe even both. But I'm going to move back in closer. I'm going to make sure that I get re-engagement before I call them to come. And consider as well that that dog may have had enough of a training session. So with puppies, we want to try to always end on a high note. We don't want to keep going until they're just overfaced by the distractions in the environment and they're over it. They just don't want to work anymore, and they're so blah that it's not fun for them. So try to keep the sessions where there's pressure and stress. I would keep those a little bit shorter with the puppy, or break them up. Mm-hmm. So if my dog was really feeling challenged by the environment, I would do maybe 2 or 3 restraint recalls, and then I might do a sit at my side, or I might do some response to name, or I might just have my dog do a lie down and let him observe things a little bit while I just let his brain calm. And then I might do another couple of recalls from there. So a lot of it depends on your dog and their individual tendencies and how much work you can get out of them before they start to go, oh, look, there's a squirrel.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that immediately comes to mind is that, we've published lots of things that talk about not taking your dog for a walk until you've trained them, or spending the time going for a walk, training them to walk. But these are the kinds of exercises that you can do that will burn off so much more energy than your dog dragging you around the block. You spend 5-6 minutes sometimes with a young dog in training on some, recalls that are, 15, 20 feet. The dog is tired by the end of that. They're ready to go lie down in their crate for the next 4 hours or whatever the situation may be. But these are the kinds of things, we've published lots of different content on YouTube that talks about, here's some ways to exercise your dog without taking them for a walk. Mm-hmm. And people will say, well, obviously this is, I can't believe you're talking about not taking a dog for a walk. Dogs, this is classic, laziness and blah, blah, blah. Well, we want you to take your dogs for walks. We want you to go for walks, but we also want you to do more. We want you to do more than just take your dog for a walk. And don't take your dog for a walk if they're not ready to learn, how to walk on a loose leash. So you need to double down on some of these exercises. We want you to this is the big picture win that we see from a lot of our students, because we have so many different ways to exercise that includes us. Yeah. Things that the dog finds rewarding because they get some sort of reward through us, not just from us, but they're giving us something and we give them something that they like. And this is a great example of that.
Absolutely. And so important that we are able to build relationship with our dogs by telling them how to be right, rather than following them around and saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Right.
And rather than setting out for a walk and being frustrated because I can't get any focus from my dog because he doesn't know how to walk nicely yet. And he's pulling my arm out and I don't know how to fix this because he's overfaced by the environment to begin with. I want to start everything in a quiet location where he is not being challenged by distractions and he can focus in on me. He can give me the best attention he's got and I can give him my best attention, and we can start out our relationship with a whole bunch of this is how you do this rather than no, you're wrong.
Yeah. Some people might be listening to this podcast and thinking, well, that's great, but I don't have a friend, a family member, somebody to help restrain my dog if I'm going to practice this. Or maybe, it's in the morning and I take the dog out for exercise before the family goes to work or whatever. How would someone work on an exercise like this in a solo training situation?
Yeah, I feel their pain. I'm very sparingly ask my partner for help because he loves the dogs, but it's not his thing. So I could literally put him to work for, 12 hours a day helping me train my dogs. But the rest of the time when I'm not torturing him with that, I will be on my own. And I will use a second leash a lot so that I can get in the hundreds of repetitions of this that I want to do with every single puppy that comes through my house. I want my dog to hear the word come and there be nothing else in the world that is any better that ever takes their attention off of me. So I work really, really hard. And every new location I get to with a puppy, I try to do some form of restraint recall and response to name. Those are always my top 2 priorities for training in any new location. And when I'm alone, I have to find stationary objects that aren't going to fall over on my puppy. That's a really important thing. So a solid tree or a fence post that's not going to fall over. And basically you can use one leash to wrap around the post and you can get as long a leash as you want to eventually to build distance from your puppy or from your dog. And you're going to basically use that restraining leash as the second person restraining your dog. So if you wrap it around the tree, it's attached to the puppy, you can control it on the other side of the tree, tease your dog back away. You can even have a second leash in your hand so that you can keep control just in case. Always safety first. If you're in a spot where there's any danger whatsoever, you always want to make sure that you've got a fail safe in place. And basically, as that leash is restraining, get them excited, call them to come, turn and run away, and drop the leash that is wrapped around the tree. It'll release the dog and they'll be able to chase you and have fun. So you can get in tons of repetition, even if you don't have a second person there.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll often do if, we take the puppy out to do the business in the morning, a really quick way is just simply take hold of their collar, get them excited, driving toward you and, use exciting language. Maybe I've gone out with a few treats that the dog might really like and get them really excited, ready, set, and come and back away and reward them. And oftentimes in those situations, depending on the dog's skill level, but I'll normally ask for a sit in front because it's so short and I know I've got the dog's undivided attention, but it's also a great opportunity to start to condition that. But those little practices, just again, you're putting money in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can qualify that sit in front. It doesn't have to be boring either. It can be a sit and then, you're the smartest dog and you get a big hunk of cheese. And then even from there, it doesn't have to be that the sit is just okay and then release.
Totally.
You could tell your dog, okay, release them to a toy, have a little game of play, having that sort of happy medium in there where you have control exercises to rely on as well as play is a great thing to do. So
absolutely. I can't reinforce enough. I can't state enough how important this skill is to have for your dog and to get to a point where your recall is reliable. You do need to have a solid foundation. I can't tell you the last time I needed to use a come command. I just can't think of one time. But there's been lots of times when we'd be out for a walk that I practiced that skill because, just to update and refresh and remind the dog that there's tons of value if you respond when I say this word. But we're building a pyramid here. Lots and lots and lots and lots of repetition of this motivation, of the foundation stuff. And then as we make our way up, we're reinforcing these skills, reinforcing that behavior, and then fine tuning it a little bit as we move along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've often thought about that, like the ratio of how much I actually practice my recall versus how much I actually use my recall. Because for the most part, we teach our dogs to listen in general terms as well. We teach them to respond to their name and then casual commands and whatnot. So those are the day-to-day things. But we still want to practice that emergency recall, that one that you can rely on. And I would say it's probably 85% of it is practice versus 15 over the lifetime of a dog versus 15% when I actually needed it. Yeah. But that 15%, those are the life-saving times, or those are the times that I'm out in the conservation and I want to give my dog some freedom and let them off leash. So.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think with this upcoming summer, I guess, depending on where you are in the world, here in Ontario, Canada, we are in, it's a lockdown, stay at home. Mm-hmm. Who knows what sort of freedoms we'll have in the future for travel and things. But I think what we're going to see is a lot of people, new dog owners, traveling a bit with their dog, going camping. And I love the fact that you mentioned every time I go to a new place, I'll work on that response to name. I'll work on that recall, because you can be there with your dog on a 6-foot leash. All you need is some reinforcer, some reward that they like, and you can practice this. You get to the campsite and you do 20, 30 of these. Now the dogs, exercise their brain, exercise their body. You can, they can go in their crate, or they can go somewhere safe while you set the camp up, get the kids ready, or whatever, whatever's needed while you're there.
Absolutely. And don't let the idea of going to different locations put too much pressure on you in terms of the repetition, because you've already started in quiet locations. Your dog has a really good foundation by the time you start building to new locations. You get to a point where your dog, they will start to problem solve. They will start to learn how to generalize. All these concepts, they're completely foreign concepts for dogs. Dogs basically, they want to eat, they want to sleep, they want to be safe. Yeah. They don't have all these rules about where they need to walk or what sort of sounds they need to respond to. It's all about being safe. So we need to teach these concepts, and this allows us to help our dogs understand.
Yeah. And we have 6 dogs in our household. So we're always thinking, okay, what do these guys need? Do we need exercise? Mm-hmm. Will it be better will we be able to relax if all the dogs have been exercised? And if you can do it in just a few minutes with just a few exercises, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do some training that's going to tire out that dog? So I want you guys to really, be mindful about your introducing the come command to your dog. Use it sparingly, but when you do, make it a lot of fun. And then as time progresses, you can make things more challenging. And in fact, in our life skills program for dogs 5 months and older, we talk a lot about the recall. It's actually one of the 3 main skills, along with lots of other things, but 3 main skills that we talk about. Maybe you can briefly just talk about our life skills program.
Yeah, you bet. So the 3 main skills that we deal with in life skills are coming when called, walking nicely on leash, and sitting down stays. However, there's so much more to it. There's general listening in day-to-day life. What I just said, basically, where we expect our dogs to listen on leash or off leash, basically with our casual commands in day-to-day life. That's exactly the way we teach things in life skills. We teach the dogs to have general understanding and listening. We use good management to keep them from making mistakes in the house, and we teach you how to do all of that. The nice thing about our online programs, and I'm sure I've said this before, we took a long time to come to the online space because we have done this for a long time. We've been around since 1982. It's our 40th anniversary next year. And we know how much support it takes to help our students train their dogs. We know that you can't just pick up a book, read what it says, and then go and apply it in real life, because every dog's a little bit different. Yeah. And we didn't want to make online programs that sort of followed that formula where here's a video to watch, and you know what, if it doesn't fit your dog, sorry, too bad, so sad. So we took a while to come to the online space because we wanted to do it right. We have a support system in place that I can't imagine there is anything out there that's similar. We have support through our group. We have support through email. We have the ability to meet with our students once a week and do live Zoom calls where we get to have some face-to-face time with them. We get to talk about different training concepts and common issues that are happening. You know, we talk about timing. We talk about sort of the common problems. Jumping up, as an example, would be one of our deep dives in a Zoom call. So there's so much opportunity to interact with the instructors that it's like basically having a dog trainer in your back pocket all week long.
For sure. I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm learning, I'm so proud of the Life Skills and Puppy Essentials program, because you have access to a dog trainer within 24 hours, and usually within like an hour, you can get an answer for some crazy question, because stuff comes up. Mm-hmm. And, puppy and dog training can be a real challenge. And there are lots of things that happen and you're like, what on earth do I do now? Or I've tried this thing and it's just not working. And the truth is inherently nuanced when it comes to dog training. So having access to a professional dog trainer makes a huge difference and speeds up the training, keeps it more fun.
Yeah, most definitely.
Now, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button. And on that note, I'm Ken.
I'm Shannon.
Happy training, guys. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the McCann Dogs podcast. And if you'd like some more training resources, be sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at McCann Dogs. And if you'd like to train with us online, be sure to check out the show notes below for our My Dog Can online training program, where we know in just a few weeks your dog will become a well-behaved family member. Until then, happy training.